The censor officer's voice carried a particular tension that Suvarath Keth had learned to trust over 19 years of campaign. Commander. Border contact. Sector 9 Delta. Keth set down his tactical report and crossed the command deck of the Primacy of Calculation, his flagship among 47 vessels currently holding formation in the outer reach of Vethnar expansion space. Class and capacity? Human. Patrol designation. Single vessel. The officer's secondary hands worked the display with careful precision. Commander, it is already damaged. Keth studied the readout. The vessel, human designation ISS Kaveri, border patrol class, no larger than one of his light frigates, was moving through open space at reduced speed. Hull integrity at 23%. Primary weapon array at roughly half capacity. Life support cycling erratically, indicating internal damage the crew was managing in real time. And yet, it held course. Straight line, no deviation. It was not retreating. It was not transmitting a distress signal. It was not hailing for assistance from whatever larger fleet humanity surely had somewhere behind it. What is it doing? His tactical officer asked. The answer came 3 seconds later as the sensor feed resolved into sharper detail. The human vessel had reduced speed not because of engine failure, but because it had deployed an external maintenance harness. In the middle of open space. With 47 Vethnar warships on its sensors. The crew of ISS Kaveri was welding a hull breach shut from the outside. Keth had fought 41 campaigns. He had never seen anything like it. Their sensors are operational? He asked. Yes, Commander. They see us. They have seen us for 17 minutes. He processed that. They knew his fleet was there. They were outnumbered 47-1, crewed a damaged vessel in open space with no support, and they were doing maintenance. He looked at the hull of the human ship more carefully. At high magnification, the sensor feed resolved something unusual, a section of outer hull plating different in composition from the surrounding structure. Newer welds over older still. A patchwork across the forward section, irregular, clearly done at different times across what must have been years. What is that on the forward hull? He asked. The intelligence officer adjusted the resolution. Human writing. Multiple scripts. A pause that was longer than it needed to be. Commander, they are names. Names. Welded directly onto the hull. Dozens of them. Some fresh, some so old the metal had discolored differently from the rest of the plating around them. Names of what? Nobody answered. Nobody had an answer. The maintenance crew outside the Kaveri completed their weld, re-entered through the airlock, and the vessel resumed course. It was heading toward his fleet. Keth opened fleet communications. All ships, forward advance. Standard engagement posture. He paused for just a moment. The human vessel is not to be allowed to withdraw. This ends quickly. What he did not know then, what he would not fully understand until it was far too late, was that the ISS Kaveri had no withdrawal protocol. Not because of equipment failure. Not because of comm damage. Not because the captain had forgotten the procedure. Because it had never been installed. The Vethnar measured military capacity in a precise and proven calculus: available weapon systems, hull integrity, crew complement, fuel reserve. Any vessel below 40% on any two of these measures was categorized as non-threatening. Pursuit was a courtesy. Surrender was a formality. ISS Kaveri was below 40% on 3. Standard protocol dictated a single hail, an offer of terms, 30 seconds to comply. Keth issued it personally. Human vessel. You are in restricted Vethnar expansion space. Stand down weapons, reduce speed to 0, and prepare to receive a boarding party. You have 30 seconds to comply. The response came in 14 seconds. A human voice, male, measured, carrying the flat precision of someone reporting facts rather than experiencing them. The translator rendered the words without embellishment. Unidentified vessels. You are operating in restricted human border space, Sector 9 Delta, established under the Outer Reach Accords of 2271. I am required to inform you that this sector is under active patrol jurisdiction. Please identify your flag and state your business. Keth stared at the speaker for a long moment. His intelligence officer spoke carefully. Commander, they did not acknowledge your hail. They issued their own. Yes. He processed this. The human vessel had received his demand for surrender and responded with its own demand for identification. From a ship at 23% hull integrity. Against 47 warships. Prefect Oraz, his second, a careful and experienced officer, pulled up the Kaveri's patrol record from captured galactic registry files. The vessel had been on solo patrol assignment in Sector 9 Delta for 8 months and 11 days. Crew complement listed at 47. No resupply had reached the vessel in 5 months. 3 crew fatalities were on record from a prior incident with an unregistered mining convoy. 8 months, Oraz observed. Alone. Minimal resupply. 3 dead. Combat damage from a previous encounter. He looked up. And they are patrolling. The daily logs were intercepted alongside the file. Small notations, coordinate strings, timestamps, and nothing remarkable. Patrol circuit complete. No anomalies. Continuing. Over and over, for months, each entry signed by a name, Velayutam, A. Captain, ISS Kaveri. Why hasn't their command rotated them out? The intelligence officer asked. Nobody had an answer. Keth sent a second hail. Human vessel, you have not complied. You are vastly outmatched. There is no tactical logic in continued advancement. Are you experiencing navigational failure? The response, negative navigational failure. This is ISS Kaveri, on active patrol, Sector 9 Delta. You are in restricted space. I have asked you twice to identify and state your business. I will ask once more, as a courtesy. Oraz turned in his seat. Commander. He is asking us. A third time. I heard. We have 47 ships. I am aware. His junior officer, newly assigned, this his first extended campaign, said what the others were too careful to voice. Should we withdraw? When the human fleet responds. From one ship? The words came out sharper than he intended. We outnumber them 47-1. Their hull is at 23%. We are withdrawing from nothing. He opened the fleet channel. All ships, advance to engagement range. Standard pattern. End this. I see 47 of you, the human captain transmitted, unprompted, as if he had heard Keth's order through some channel that should not have been open. I want you to know I am logging this engagement for the record. He is logging it, the junior officer repeated, quietly, to no one in particular. The ISS Kaveri powered its remaining weapon arrays online and continued forward. The first exchange lasted 11 minutes and cost Keth 4 ships. Not destroyed, 3 disabled, 1 destroyed, and he had expected to lose none. The human captain fought the engagement the way a physician operated, not with power, but with precision. ISS Kaveri ignored the largest vessels entirely. It targeted propulsion systems on the smallest ships, turned them into debris that complicated the formations of their neighbors. It moved in angles that made no immediate geometric sense until Keth realized the crew was using the ship's own damage as a navigation tool, venting atmosphere from breach points in controlled pulses to shift trajectory without firing thrusters, confounding targeting solutions that had locked onto the expected flight path. He watched it happen and for a long moment could not speak. Commander, They are using their hull breaches to maneuver. I can see what they are doing. How did they calculate the later? He ordered 3 wings to tighten the engagement formation. No more maneuvering room. Weight of fire. ISS Kaveri took significant hits, hull integrity dropping to 15%, and Keth allowed himself a moment of clinical certainty. It was nearly finished. It could not survive another coordinated strike. Then his sensor officer spoke. Commander. I have resolved the hull markings. The names on the exterior plating. He had nearly forgotten. And? They are crew members. Former crew members, sir. A pause that did something uncomfortable to the bridge's atmosphere. Those are the names of everyone who has ever served aboard that vessel and died in service. The Welds, the older ones, some of them predate this crew by decades. This tradition was not begun by the current captain. Another pause. The 3 crew members killed 5 months ago in the mining vessel incident. Their names are in the newest Welds. At the front of the ship. The command deck was quiet for 3 seconds. They carry their dead with them, Oraz said. Not a question. Keth's junior officer answered anyway, as though compelled. Why would they? To remember. The voice came through the open comm channel, and Keth recognized it, Captain Velayutum, who had apparently been listening the entire time. So they're never just a number in a report. No one spoke. Through the viewport, ISS Kaveri was managing a new breach. Bigger than any previous, internal atmosphere venting now beyond crew control, the surviving sections going to emergency seal. The crew had been pushed into a smaller and smaller envelope of survivable space within their dying vessel. The vessel kept coming. Keth had encountered humans twice before, in disputed border incidents. Both times, facing clear impossibility, the human commanders had done the rational thing, opened negotiations, requested time, positioned for reinforcement. Every intelligent species did. You survived first. You fought later. From strength. Hail them again, he said. Tell them. ISS Kaveri, Border Patrol Log, Day 249. The transmission cut through, not directed at the fleet. Directed home. Time 1447. Hostile force, 43 vessels now, after initial engagement. Hull at 15%. Crew at 31 from 44. We are still in Sector 9 Delta. The border has not been passed. It was a log entry. In the middle of the engagement. He was filing a routine daily log entry. He is reporting to command, the intelligence officer said. Status update. Mid-battle. Keth stood at his viewport and watched the ISS Kaveri absorb another strike, watched a secondary weapon array go dark, watched the vessel shudder and correct course and continue advancing, and felt the first cold whisper of something he had not felt in 41 campaigns. What kind of species, his junior officer began. A tired one, Oraz said. He was still reading the patrol record on his secondary screen. 8 months and 11 days, alone. No resupply. 3 dead before today. Whatever this is, he set the screen down, it isn't strength. It isn't arrogance. He met Keth's eyes. They are exhausted. And they are still here. Because this is their patrol. Because that is what a patrol ship does. Keth said nothing. He looked at the hull of the human vessel, at the welded names of the dead pressed into steel, at the 15% of structural integrity remaining between 31 crew members and vacuum. And understood, with a certainty that sat cold in his chest, that he did not understand these creatures at all. Tighten the formation, he said. Because he had no other order to give. He brought the full weight of 43 ships to bear in the second hour. ISS Kaveri was a hull fragment by any honest assessment. 12% integrity remaining. 3 weapon systems confirmed offline. Atmosphere venting uncontrolled from 2 quadrants. The surviving crew had retreated to the central section, a smaller, sealed envelope of pressurized space within what was, structurally, no longer a functioning warship. 26 crew remaining. Keth ordered 32 ships to fire simultaneously. The human vessel did not evade. It could not, insufficient hull to redirect under lateral force, insufficient thrust to outmaneuver the overlapping fire solutions. It absorbed the strike on its forward section, and for 4 seconds the sensor resolution was lost inside the blast. When it cleared, ISS Kaveri was still there. 11%. The readout rendered the number with mechanical indifference. 11. 20 crew remaining. Down from 26 seconds ago. 6 lives, in 4 seconds. The vessel stopped moving forward. For 8 full seconds, it held stationary in open space. "They're done," someone said quietly. Then the engines fired again. Not at full thrust, the vessel was structurally incapable of it. A slow, crawling resumption of forward movement, hull venting continuously, the surviving weapon arrays cycling up with the strained efficiency of something operating far past design tolerance. And then the transmission came through. Not directed at the fleet. Not directed to command. A private channel, shipped to unknown recipient, but the intercept was automatic and the translator was fast, and the entire bridge of the primacy of calculation heard what it carried. Priya. Captain Arjun Velayudam's voice. Quieter than in the patrol log. Different. If this gets to you. A pause. Behind his voice, the sound of something mechanical and rhythmic, the sound of someone manually cycling a weapon charging sequence by hand, because the automated system was no longer operational. It has been a good 8 months. Strange posting. The sector is very quiet, mostly. Was quiet. Another pause. Sentiel would have been 18 next month. I think about that. I think you should take him to the coast. He always loved the water. The bridge of the primacy of calculation did not make a sound. We have 20 crew. 11% hull. Roughly 40 ships still in formation. His voice had changed now, not broken, but steadied. The kind of steadied that only comes after grief has been acknowledged and set aside. There is a protocol, I know. Standing orders for withdrawal under overwhelming force. But the protocol requires the border to have been crossed before withdrawal is authorized. The border has not been crossed. The mechanical cycling sound continued. Arjun Velayudam was manually charging his weapons while composing a message to his wife about taking their son to the sea. I am going to ask you not to grieve too long. You were never good at it. You grieve all at once, completely, and then you stop and you do the next thing. So do that. Do the next thing. The transmission ended. 20 crew. 11% hull integrity. 43 warships. Keth became aware that his tactical officer was staring at his console with an expression that had nothing professional in it. His intelligence officer had turned away. Oraz was looking at his hands. His junior officer, the one who had never been in a campaign before this, was perfectly still in his seat, and Keth could not tell if he was about to speak or about to be sick. Commander, the junior officer said, and his voice had shed every trace of trained precision. Commander, we should end this, Keth said. Because it was the only order that made sense. Because whatever these creatures were, there was no version of this engagement that did not conclude with ISS Kaveri destroyed. He had 43 ships. The mathematics had not changed. But when he lifted his head to give the command, the words would not come. Because the border had not been passed. That sentence. From a man who had been composing a message to his wife while manually operating his own weapons while his hull dissolved around him. The border had not been passed. Not defiance. Not courage, the way the Vethnar understood courage. A fact. Being maintained through the quiet, exhausted refusal of a tired man and 19 others to allow it to become a different fact. We will advance, Keth said at last. All remaining ships. Full formation. Overwhelming fire. End this. ISS Kaveri had 11% hull. What it had more of, what he was only now beginning to recognize, was something his species had spent 200,000 years of civilization never developing a word for. 38 ships remained in his fleet. He had lost 9. From one patrol vessel that should have been eliminated in 7 minutes. The intercept system flagged a second private transmission. Not from the captain, this one originated from the communication station, now located in the sealed secondary section. A different voice. Young, female. The translator identified the dialect as Tamil, same coastal language as the captain's own. Amma. A breath. I don't have much time and I'm not certain this reaches you with the array in its current state, but I'm trying. The distant sound of something cycling in the ship, an alarm, engaging and then silencing. I wanted to say that the posting was good. I know you thought I was too young for border assignment. But it was good. Captain Velayudam he is the kind of officer who makes you feel like the work matters. Like this specific stretch of empty space matters. Like we matter. A pause. There are 19 of us still. There were 47 when we left. I keep thinking about the names on the hull. Every one of them was someone who believed the work was worth it. And I think. She stopped. The ship shuddered around her. Something structural gave way in the background. I think that is enough, she said. I think that is enough too. The transmission cut. Not ended. Severed, mid-sentence, by hull failure in the communications array. Keth's sensor officer reported without meeting anyone's eyes, life signs in secondary section. 19 crew. Wounds on 11. 3 in critical status. Weapon status? 2 arrays still active. Manually operated. A pause that lasted slightly too long. Commander, their manual targeting accuracy, at this hull state, with that crew complement, with no automated support, their accuracy is higher than automated systems should produce under these conditions. He stopped. Resumed. They are more accurate when the systems fail. I do not know how to explain that. Keth looked at ISS Kaveri and thought about a young woman whose transmission had been cut before she could finish her sentence, who had been trying to tell her mother that the work was worth it. He thought about a captain composing a message to his wife about a sun and a coast and the sea. He thought about names welded into steel, not trophies, not memorials, but something else. Something he was only beginning to approach a name for. Ask him, Oraz said quietly. Keth turned. Ask the captain. Ask him why. Oraz met his eyes with the steadiness of 19 years of service. You have 43 ships. He has 11% hull. You have not found anything that stops them. So ask the man. Keth opened the channel. Human captain. He paused. I am asking not as an enemy commander. I am asking because I genuinely do not understand. Why will you not stop? The response came after a long moment. The sound of that mechanical cycling behind the voice. The border has not been passed, said Captain Arjun Velayudam. That is not an answer. A pause that lasted 3 full seconds. Yes it is, the captain replied. It is the only one I have. Keth made the order that every commander hopes to never give. Full formation advance. No more measured exchanges, no more probing strikes. 38 ships in a converging fire solution against a target with 11% hull and 19 survivors. It would be over in seconds. He gave the order. ISS Kaveri had been stationary for 32 seconds before this moment, the first time in the engagement it had held still, and he had assumed the engines were finally dead. They were not dead. They had been charging. Every remaining joule that the vessel's reactor could produce had been diverted, away from weapons, away from life support, away from communications, into the drive system. Every last reserve. The ISS Kaveri accelerated directly into the formation. Not away. Not sideways. Into the center of 38 warships in close engagement formation. The mathematics of it were immediate and terrible. A vessel at full emergency thrust, even a small one. Even a hull fragment with its skin falling apart and its crew in single digits, moving at maximum velocity into a densely packed formation of warships was not an engagement problem. It was a geometry problem. The blast radius of catastrophic structural failure, the debris spread of emergency venting, the unpredictable trajectory of a reactor pushed past limits, you could not hold formation against it. You could not fire accurately into it. You got out of the way or the losses were unacceptable. The formation scattered. Not all of them cleared in time. 2 Vethnar frigates clipped each other in the separation, one losing drive capacity entirely, one losing primary weapons. 3 more took debris impacts from the explosive decompression events as the Kaveri vented everything that remained of its secondary systems, not as a weapon, simply as the physics of a dying vessel at full speed passing through occupied space. 44 seconds. When it resolved, ISS Kaveri was on the far side of the formation. Hull integrity at 4%. 1 weapon array still active. Life signs, 11 crew. The sensor officer corrected, 8. Then 7. The critical status personnel had not survived the acceleration load. But the vessel was still flying. Still on the border line. It had gone through them. Not around, not past, not retreating. Through, at maximum emergency velocity, as though the concept of going around had never occurred to anyone aboard. And it held position now on the far side, its 1 remaining weapon array tracking, its 4% hull somehow containing 7 human beings, and it did not advance further. It did not need to. Keth stood at his viewport and looked at ISS Kaveri, and understood, fully, at last, that there was no version of this engagement where the vessel retreated. Not because the captain lacked the authorization. Not because the crew lacked the will. Because the border had not been passed, and on this ship, in this crew, in the names welded to the hull and the private messages sent to mothers and wives while weapons were being charged by hand, those words meant something outside the domain of military calculation entirely. All ships, Keth said. His voice came out quieter than he intended. Withdraw. Set course for Vethnar expansion space. A pause. Do not engage the human vessel. Commander, Orcs began. It held the border, Keth said. We are leaving. 38 ships turned. An entire fleet, moving away from 7 human beings in 4% of a hull that was no longer technically a ship. Behind them, ISS Kaveri held position. 11 hours after the engagement, the ISS Kaveri transmitted its daily patrol log. Border Patrol Log, Day 249. Sector 9 Delta clear of hostile forces as of 1,619 hours. Hull integrity at 3%. Crew at 7, 3 requiring immediate medical attention. Requesting medical support and repair team at earliest available. Note for the record. 47 hostile vessels entered Sector 9 Delta at 1,317 hours and withdrew at 1,619 hours without crossing into human space. The border was maintained throughout. No hostile vessels passed the line. A pause, lasting exactly as long as a man needed to confirm his instruments and note the next coordinates. Continuing patrol. The Vethnar High Council read Suvarath Keth's full engagement report 3 days later. They asked him to explain the outcome in detail. He filed 7 supplementary reports. None of them fully accounted for the variable that had decided everything, because that variable did not fit into Vethnar military theory, and forcing it into that framework produced conclusions that the Council found difficult to accept. One human patrol vessel had engaged 47 warships, absorbed fire that should have ended at 8 separate times, and held its position until the fleet withdrew. 7 survivors. 3% hull. The Council asked the operational question: how many border patrol vessels did humanity currently operate? The answer came back from intelligence analysis within 48 hours. 847. Mostly small, many aging, all on solo assignment in the quiet sectors between human space and the expansion corridors of neighboring powers. Rotating crews. Regular, if sometimes delayed, resupply runs. All active. All patrolling, daily, without reinforcement, across the long cold stretches of empty space that represented the boundary between human territory and everything outside it. The Council spent 2 days in closed session. Then they authorized a diplomatic contact request. The human diplomat who received the Vethnar ambassador 4 months later was a career Foreign Service officer who met him in the neutral ground of Galactic Registry Station 7, a quiet place of long corridors and filtered starlight. She was composed and unhurried and carried herself with the particular stillness of someone who had done their grieving already and was now doing the next thing. The ambassador had reviewed her file. He understood who she was in relation to the captain of ISS Kaveri. He believed she understood that he knew. "We would like to open formal relations," he said. "We're open to that," she answered. The silence between them was not uncomfortable. "Is the captain," he began. "Recovering. Medical says 3 more weeks." She folded her hands on the table. "Then he goes back on patrol." The Vethnar ambassador looked at her for a long moment. Then he looked out at the stars beyond the viewport, at the quiet sectors, the empty corridors of space, the places where single ships moved alone in the dark between civilizations. He had commanded fleets. He had won wars. In 40 years of service, he had never once felt afraid of an empty star field. The star fields no longer felt empty. "On your vessels," he said slowly. "The names on the hull. We observed. Everyone who served and died on that ship," she said. "Every patrol, going back to the first crew." "Why?" Priya Subramaniam considered the question with the patience of someone who had thought about it herself, recently, at length. "So they're never just a number in a report," she said. "And so the crew that comes after knows, they aren't the first ones to find it hard. And they won't be the last." The ambassador was quiet for a long time. Long enough that the silence became its own kind of answer. "He goes back on patrol," he said at last. Not a question. "He goes back on patrol." Outside the viewport, 847 human border vessels moved through the dark between the stars, each one carrying its dead on its hull and its coordinates in its logs and nothing else in particular, except the knowledge of where the line was, and that it had not been passed, and that they were the ones who would make sure it stayed that way. That was all. That had always been enough.